part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
And welcome to another Reghi Roda podcast powered by MGM Northfield Park right here on the Press Play Podcast Network. As we always do, can't start the show without giving a tip of the cap, some flowers, a bouquet of flowers, a high five to our main man, Ty Courts, our producer. We're both tipping our cap to you, Ty. Thanks so much for making sure this gets out to all of our loyal listeners in the podcatosphere. So, Ty, thanks so much. And Michael Reghi, we're going to be all over the place today. Browns are done, right? We're going to get into some Cavs who won 7 in a row. But the AFC and NFC Championship games are set, Michael Reghi. And it is going to be a fun Sunday next weekend when Kansas City, the defending Super Bowl champs, travel to Baltimore. And then your Detroit line, you and JT, my two guys that I work with, right? Yeah. JT at WHBC, Kenny and JT show Monday through Friday, 3 to 7. His second favorite team behind the Browns is the Lions. And you're a Lions fan. I know you got your Lions cap on. You guys are excited because Detroit is playing in the NFC Championship game next weekend at San Francisco, Michael. And let's kind of recap how these teams got there. It was a fun weekend of football.
No, real fun weekend of football, and, long time coming for the Detroit Lions. We'll get into that in a moment, but, Kenny, born and raised in the city of Detroit, so, go back to the 1960s when, my dad and my uncle started taking me to Lions games, but before that, Ken, how about the Kansas City Chiefs? I've always really liked Andy Reid, just as a head coach and the way he's run his program, started at Philadelphia and now, of course, with Kansas City. Kenny, this is 6 straight AFC Championship games for them. Now, in this era, I don't know if they're going to continue it, but I don't know if we'll ever see this again in this era of difficulty of being able to, take your team year after year and with this type of success. I mean, so, I get a tip of the cap to Andy Reid and his football team because, again, 6 straight times to the AFC Championship game for him and his Kansas City Chiefs. Now, it's going to be, it ain't going to be an easy one for them. As they're going to have to go into Baltimore and win. So, how about we start there?
Okay.
I like the Ravens. I think that they're the best football team in the NFL this year overall. Yes, even a little bit better to me than San Francisco. And so I think they're going to be a very tough out. And we know the Chiefs are capable, yes, but Kenny, I don't see anybody this year going into Baltimore and taking down John Harbaugh, Lamar Jackson, and that very well-versed, and by that I mean just both sides of the ball and every facet of the game. To me, I believe that Baltimore has proven to be the best team in the NFL this year, and I don't see anybody in the AFC, and Kansas City's the one that's got the shot going in there and beating them. How about you?
If it would have been Buffalo, I probably would have agreed with you 100% because Buffalo's defense is so banged up, right? And we saw that today. Kansas City wins today 27-24. Mahomes 215 in the air with 2 touches, no picks. Travis Kelce with his sweetheart, Miss Swifty, up in the luxury box with a couple of touchdown grabs today. And they fumbled through the end zone. Could have been a worse score, right? Could have been 34-24, Kansas. And how about, man, I got friends. Tim Alcorn is a buddy of mine. And Timmy from calling the Cavs games and all those years at WEOL. And another John Picone Pick, who, is one of the beer reps that we deal with, out in Canton. They're huge Buffalo Bills fans. And all I got to say, man, wide right again. I feel for both of you. Tyler Bass today, really with a a shank or a push, or maybe it was the wind. I don't know what it was, but Tyler Bass had a chance to tie it up with 44 seconds left, or excuse me, 44-yard field goal with 140 left. He misses, so KC moves on. And so just something about Patrick Mahomes. I will not, what was it that Tom Jonovich said? Don't underestimate the heart of a champion, right?
Right, yes.
And until somebody knocks them out, I got to go with Kansas City. On the road, I know, hey, this was his first road game this year, right?
Yes.
Or excuse me, first road game in his career on the playoffs, and he played pretty well.
Yes.
Their defense seemed to play pretty well today, and maybe they're coming around. So you have been on the money with Baltimore from week one, Reg. You said they were going to win the AFC North. You like them to go far in the playoffs, and here they are hosting the AFC Championship game. So kudos to you for spotting that with Lamar Jackson and company. But even though he played well in the win over Houston, 34-10 with 152 yards passing, 2 touches, no picks, important there, and he ran for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. Until, I guess it's like Muhammad Ali, until you knock the champ out, in order to be the man, you got to beat the man. Woo! And so I'm going to go with Kansas City in that one, in a close game on the road, but it would not surprise me if Baltimore came away with the win.
I completely understand your stance on that. And I will say, if anybody is going to do it, go into M&T Bank Stadium, I believe that's what it's called,
right,
in downtown Baltimore, and beat John Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. Yeah, I would say that the guy that's got the greatest shot to do that is the one that's going to have the chance, and of course that is Patrick Mahomes. And running that offense for Coach Reed and the Kansas City Chiefs, they can do it.
Yeah,
and there's no question about that. They can do it. They're capable. So we'll see. I would think it's going to be a hell of an AFC Championship final. Though I like Baltimore to hold serve at home, but again, certainly wouldn't surprise me if Patrick Mahomes was able to take that football team in there and do enough to come out victorious. I mean, 6 in a row now, Ken. 6 in a row AFC Championship games.
Yeah. That was me fumbling my phone right there, trying to see what the latest is on some of the walking wounded for Baltimore. Mark Andrews might be back for that game, Reg. That would be huge. As far as another weapon on offense. Do we know anything about Humphrey? I can't find anything on my phone after fumbling it here on whether or not Humphrey will be back defensively. That would be a huge get for them as well, going up against this passing attack led by Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, possibility of it that he'll play, and of course that would be big. I kind of feel bad for for the Buffalo kicker. I mean that's one you just got to hit, and he pushed it again, and that team and that fan base, Kenny, they just repeatedly have issues with opportunities to win football games and don't do it. So, but Patrick Mahomes is, he's going to go down as one of the best that's ever done it in postseason play, and so he's going to get his shot. I think if we're being honest, Ken, we've got the 2 best teams in the AFC.
Yep.
And like I said, I wouldn't give a shot, Buffalo. I wouldn't have given them the type of shot that I'm giving Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City to go into Buffalo and beat the Ravens. They've got a shot. They've got more than just a shot. They've got a strong opportunity to do just that and get that done. So we're going to see. But I hope we get a classic AFC final. It's built as that with those 2 teams and those 2 quarterbacks. So let's hope that all that we're going to hear all weekend, he lives up with the game being that sort of a championship-worthy game between the 2 best teams in the AFC.
Right now, -3, Baltimore. So Baltimore, the favorite, home field advantage, 3 points. That's where the line has opened. We'll see which way it goes throughout the week. Kansas City at Baltimore, 3 p.m. on Sunday. That's a CBS telecast. So you can watch that one. That's the first game on Sunday in the AFC Championship game. The NFC Championship game, Detroit at San Francisco. By the way, opening line on that was 7. It's down to 6.5 for Sunday's 6:30 kickoff on Fox. In the Bay, Michael, and it was San Fran struggling for most of the game to get it going offensively. They had to rally and come back and beat the Green Bay Packers 24-21, but Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, no longer, making some plays, and then a healthy Christian McCaffrey. That's the key to that offense, right? McCaffrey, because he can catch it out of the backfield. He can run it. He had 2 touchdowns yesterday, but, and his name escapes me, help me, the receiver, Debo, right? Debo Samuel went down with another shoulder injury. And so we've got to wait to find out whether or not he will be able to go. And I think that's a huge factor for that offense, as we saw San Fran play without him for most of the game against the Browns, and the Browns beat them 19-17. So that's something to keep an eye on. McCaffrey looks healthy after having what we call a Lonnie Chisenhall, that calf injury that they rested for the last couple of weeks. But Debo Samuel, a huge question mark for that game.
Yeah, it is, and that's going to be something all week. That I think that that they offensively, what they do and the way offensively that Kyle Shanahan and his coaching staff put that, even with I thought this year, Kenny, you know what, Brock Purdy, maybe they're going to take a little bit of a step back, right? Well, nope, they haven't done that. Now, however, as you said, those weapons got to be firing on full go for San Francisco in a game like this. But I'll also say the worst unit of the Detroit Lions, Kenny, is their secondary.
Yep.
I would, middling at best, decent, but certainly as far as the various position units go on their football team, they can come up with some real bad ones and some stinkers, and especially on the road. So we're gonna see what Shanahan and his offense and how they look to carve up the Detroit Lions. And of course, if they've got Debo Samuel, then they're going to just have all the weapons that they've done such a fantastic job with this year. So it's going to be tough for the Lions to go out there and win. I think, sentimentally, a lot of fans are going to pull for the Detroit Lions in this one. Around the NFL, the underdog going on the road. I mean, hell, this Lions franchise, Kenny, has been they like the Browns, right? Never been to a Super Bowl. Haven't been to even an NFL championship game, since it was 1991. They got beat in that game, but before that, it was taking you back to the 1950s, late 50s. Like I said, I was a little guy growing up in Detroit, and remember them. In that time, they were one of the best teams in the NFL. But as we know, they've gone from that, Kenny, to over the decades being one of the very worst franchises in the National Football League. So they resurrected. They're back. They've got a shot, but it's going to be a tall task to go into San Fran and come up with a win there.
Here's the way I'm looking at that game, Reg, right? San Fran's been the favorite all year long in the NFC, along with Philadelphia when they were 10-1, right? And down the stretch, Philly crumbles. They lose 6 of their last 7. San Fran overcomes some injuries. They hold on, number 1 seed. They're the favorites. They're supposed to win the NFC. I look at it from this standpoint now with the Detroit Lions. House money, man, right? Great season. They've turned it around. They've used the draft picks from the Matthew Stafford trade very, very well. Jared Goff has handled himself well as the quarterback, and he's played in the Super Bowl already, even though, they traded him in LA and it worked out for the Rams winning a Super Bowl. But I think this is house money, man. You're there. You're not supposed to beat San Fran. So I hope they go out there with the mentality that we've got nothing to lose here. Let's just let it all hang out. And I know Dan Campbell, he'll have those guys fired up, right? He'll have those guys ready to rock and roll. But I hope when the game starts, their sphincters don't tighten up too much and they start dialing it back a little bit. I hope they go out and play balls to the wall and let it fly and see what happens.
Well, that's the way they're going to have to play, Kenny, because, like I said, just about every facet of the game, if you break it down positionally and by units, is going to favor the San Francisco 49ers. So, for the Lions, again, they're getting this first shot that they've had in a hell of a long time. You're right. This is ultimately that huge trade that the Detroit Lions made. It's which usually doesn't happen. And in the NFL, you don't see trades of this magnitude. But the Lions, decided to do it. They moved their franchise quarterback out. And actually, Kenny, it was all the terrific draft picks that they got. Couple of ones, couple of twos. And to their credit, Ken, they did an astute job of using those picks, because every one of them already are playing young guys, of course, now in their second year in the NFL, paying huge dividends for the Lions and are key components and figures in this football team that has gotten them here now to a conference championship game way before I think any of us thought they would be. So, it's worked out terrific. The Rams, got the Super Bowl right away with Matthew Stafford leading them to that. So you can say that this is a deal that has worked out well for both football teams as the Stafford trade was made to the LA Rams.
I'm looking at these two games where I think Kansas City as underdogs, right? And they're going to hear, now they got to play their second game on the road. I think they take that personally. We won 2 Super Bowls. We're the defending champs. This is our 6th straight AFC Championship game. So I think that's going to be their motivation. And like I said, I hope Detroit uses hey, we're not supposed to be here either. Nobody's giving us a chance. Let's go out and whether we lose by 1 or if we lose by 25 or whatever it is, let's let it all hang out and see what happens. But they're getting 6.5 Detroit, and Kansas City's getting 3 right now. I'm not going to pick the Detroit San Fran game yet, Reg, because I want to see what happens with Deebo Samuel. I think he's that big of a factor in that game for them. I'm leaning towards San Francisco. Okay. If I'm just, thinking money line pick there. But if he doesn't play, I may take Detroit with the 6.5, or maybe tease that up to, if I can get it to 10 or something like that, on a parlay and take the Lions that way. So I want to wait. Look at me talking in gambling terms.
Oh, you got all the gambling innuendo going on now, man. You are in deep now.
I'm learning as I go, Reg, learning the lingo and learning what to bet on, how to help myself or give myself a better chance to win. So I'm going to wait and see what happens with Deebo. Yes. But if Deebo plays, I like San Fran. And I'm sticking with Kansas City no matter, what happens, unless there's a monsoon or a blizzard or something up there in Baltimore that could affect the weather there. Whereas San Francisco, you could get some rain that, is a factor, but you would think the weather there is going to be a lot better than it is in Baltimore.
Yeah, well, and again, I think you're going to see like you were talking about the betting public this week. I think most are expecting a Baltimore San Francisco Super Bowl. I think that's where the most of the if you want to call it the smart money is going to be leaning this week. And I would expect that too.
Yeah.
Right now, they're both at home. Like we said, we've already said, if anybody can go into Baltimore and beat the Ravens, it's Kansas City. The Lions are, they are the newcomer to all this, Kenny. It's not it's not an area that they've been in forever. So, we'll have to wait and see how this week plays out for the Lions. And right, I mean, if San Francisco is full go and healthy,
Yeah.
I think you're going to have to do something to get, Brock Purdy off his mark, so to speak. They're going to have to find a way to, they're not going to win a game that if San Francisco goes and gets 30 plus. Lions aren't going to win that game. So that's going to be very difficult, but they're going to have to find a way. So it's going to be interesting what Dan Campbell and this Lions, the defensive coaches, Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator, and that crew come up with to try to find a way, I guess. I don't know what the magic elixir is to get San Francisco off that strong offensive mode that they're in. Not going to be easy, but they're going to have to find a way this week to do it.
All right, Reds, let's get a break in. When we come back here on the RnR podcast, I want to pick your brain about the NFL coaching carousel and what you're hearing there, and then some of the jobs are already locked in. And with Michigan winning the national championship, boy, the effect that it's had on Ryan Day and the Buckeyes is ginormous this offseason. We'll talk about all the comings and very few goings, if you get my drift, with the Buckeyes, as they are trying to reload because of what Michigan has done to them the last 3 years, and especially this year winning the national championship. And we'll talk a little Cavs basketball. They deserve some love right now. They've won 7 straight, and they're the fourth team in the East at almost the halfway point of the season. So we'll get into all that and much more when we return to the RnR podcast here on the Press Play Podcast Network, brought to you by MGM Northfield Park.
What's up, everyone? I'm Holly Wetzel.
And I'm Tyrus Powell.
And we are your hosts of the Orange is Oranger, a Cleveland Browns podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network. We give you all the dog pound coverage that you'll need to get you through the regular season, hopeful postseason, and I'd say off-season, Tyrus, but is there really ever an off-season for this team?
Thankfully for our podcast, Holly, there really never is when it comes to the Cleveland Browns. Don't miss our breakdown of each week's matchup, game recaps, and any and all news out of Berea to feed your Browns appetite. As we know, Holly, dogs gotta eat.
Yes, they do. So hit that subscribe button and never miss an episode of the Orange is Oranger, Cleveland Browns podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hey everybody, it's Sam Amico from Cavs on the Break NBA podcast. Be sure to give us a listen for all your Cleveland Cavaliers recaps, analysis, breakdowns, draft talk, free agency. The list goes on and on. Give us a listen, Cavs on the Break NBA podcast.
Hey, the Roadman Kenny Roda here for the Reghi and Roda podcast, and we've got to give a shout out to our title sponsor, MGM Northfield Park. Simply the best. You want to have a great time, head on out to MGM Northfield Park. And here's what's happening this week, January 22nd through January 28th at MGM Northfield Park. Now, doors will open daily at noon for simulcasting. Live racing Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday. On Tuesday, January 23rd, promotion game high and low contest. Registration beginning at 5:30, goes to 6:30. Good luck there. Sunday, January 28th, Gulfstream Park handicapping contest takes place. Registration begins there at 11 a.m. And here's a heads up. The Road to the Derby contest will begin on Saturday, February 3rd through Saturday, April 13th. All that happening at MGM Northfield Park. Free admission, free parking every day at Northfield Park. And tell them Reghi and Roda sent you.
Looking for new insights on the Cleveland sports scene with a unique side of Cleveland sports history? Then you found the perfect podcast. I'm John Sable.
And I'm Scott Sable, and we're hosts of the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, a podcast about Cleveland sports, but not your typical podcast about the land's sports teams. Join us as we embark on a journey of sharing a unique and historical side of Cleveland sports history with the help of some former Cleveland sports stars and other historical figures.
All right here on the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
And welcome back to the RnR podcast here on the Press Play Podcast Network, powered by MGM Northfield Park and Michael Reghi. We now know it's Kansas City at Baltimore in the AFC title game. It's Detroit at San Francisco in the NFC title game. But what we don't know is who the coaches are going to be for the LA Chargers, right? We don't know who the coach is going to be for the Atlanta Falcons yet, and there's some other jobs that are still open. But I think a lot of people are wondering, where's Belichick going to end up, and where is Jim Harbaugh going to end up? What are you hearing on, two of the greats to do it? Belichick in the NFL. Harbaugh wins a title in college football this year and has already taken a team to a Super Bowl when he was with San Francisco. So what are you hearing on those two coaches?
Atlanta Falcons seem like they're going to get one of them, Kenny, to me. And I would say that Bill Belichick is number one on their wish list in Atlanta. The Falcons keep saying, like, well, our search is wide open. But, okay, yeah, it's wide open. It's wide open with, I think, Bill Belichick, number one, and Jim Harbaugh, number two, for who they want to bring in there to take the Falcons into the next level of their play. Now, Rich McKay is the longtime NFL front office guy, right? He's their number one guy, I guess the CEO, if you will.
Okay.
And he and Belichick have had some rough go in their past together. So, I had some things out of Atlanta that it's saying that it might not be as cut and dry as everybody thinks. But that being said, I still think Belichick's their number one guy there, Kenny. And if something falls by the wayside and they can't get him, then maybe it is Jim Harbaugh behind that. Now, Harbaugh's been down there to Atlanta.
Yep.
Harbaugh also was with the Chargers, right? He interviewed there. So, I think that it seems like everybody in Michigan is pretty much now resigned to the fact that whomever offers Jim Harbaugh is going to take it and get back in the NFL and go try to do the one thing that he missed there during his 5 years with San Francisco. 4 NFC Championship games and the one Super Bowl that he lost to his brother. But I still think that if Atlanta can find a way to smooth some things out, I think that's Bill Belichick's job. And it seems like Belichick, that's the one he favors too.
I'm with you, Reg. I think, he's had 2 interviews supposedly there, right?
Right.
And people say that it's a solid team outside of the quarterback position.
Right.
So that's the one area of need for them. So Belichick, I think, this is just my opinion, okay? I'm shocked that McCarthy's back with Dallas. I'd have fired his ass before he got off the field after the way they lost in the playoffs, right? But I think Jerry, this is just me again. I think Jerry reached out and said, hey, Bill, I want you to be my coach. And Bill said, I want to be the general manager and pick the players too. And Jerry said, Bill, thanks for picking up the phone. You have a nice day. Because Jerry ain't giving up the opportunity to draft his players and give up the general manager duties. Okay. He may be listening to his son a little more. And once Bill said that, I think they said, all right, let's keep McCarthy. He's got 1 year left on his contract. And they moved in another direction. That's just me personally. But I think Bill ends up in Atlanta, and I think Harbaugh ends up with the Chargers because, number one, San Diego, Stanford, San Francisco, why not L.A., right, for Jim Harbaugh? And, Herbert is a nice quarterback to build around, whereas in Atlanta, like I said, you don't know who that quarterback is.
Exactly, and I think you just hit on the key. If you feel you got your quarterback, right, and the LA Chargers definitely do, that just to me just absolutely just yells out, bring Jim Harbaugh in then.
Right.
He's the guy because, here's a guy, as we know, who, we know his quarterbacking prowess at both Michigan and in the National Football League, and then his coaching of quarterbacks in the National Football League and at Michigan. So that's got Harbaugh written all over it to me. And Kenny, I know there's other facets of the game, but I tell you what, I think Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert would be a hell of a union because you tell me all you want about Harbaugh's quirky and he's goofy and he's all that. I'll tell you what he also is. He's a hell of a coach of quarterbacks too, and has proven that in the National Football League. People forget, damn good quarterback himself in the NFL. Good quarterback. With the Chicago Bears. So I mean, this guy has, wherever he's gone and wherever he's been, good quarterback play has always followed. So I just think that's a hell of a good union. I don't know what's taken so long there because honestly, if I'm I'd want Jim Harbaugh coming in and being the guy to being the guy to be that right hand of Justin Herbert for the next many years.
Do you think there is any hesitation from the Chargers with the potential show cause rule when Jim Tressel, remember Tressel, when he got let go at Ohio State, they had the show cause. He'd have to wait 5 years to come back in college, and he had to wait, I think, a year to join an NFL team. Do you think there's any concern from the Chargers that if the NCAA does come down on Michigan with their findings in the alleged cheating scandal, that they might have to deal with a suspension with Harbaugh in the first year?
Could be, but usually, Ken, when you're talking about it seems to me, I don't know, NFL teams don't seem to give a damn about that sort of thing to me. It's like we really don't care what's going on. Now, if you're going to tell there's NFL problems, well, that's a different story. But I don't really think that they care about that. So, like I'm saying, I'm a little bit surprised that that hasn't been done already, because it would seem to me that when you got a Justin Herbert there, that Jim Harbaugh is that's the guy. That's the guy you want. As I said, with all the success he's had with every quarterback that he's coached and been with, both in the NFL and in college football too. So we'll see if it takes place. I still think that that's going to happen, and that's where Harbaugh is going to wind up. Belichick to Atlanta, Harbaugh to LA, and what else do we have open?
Well, Antonio Pierce took the Raiders job. Mayo took the New England Patriots job.
Right,
so you've got
now,
Tennessee is still open, right?
That's right. Yeah, but there again, most of the time, don't you agree that? I mean, coaches, if you got a quarterback, I mean, that makes all the difference in the world. If you don't have a quarterback, the job is certainly not as desirable. That's just the way it goes, So, and the Tennessee situation, but LA, the Chargers, that's not something they got to worry about. They've got their franchise quarterback.
The other spots besides Tennessee, along with Atlanta and the Chargers that are open, are Washington and Carolina. So those are the other two. So right now, technically, there's 1, 2, 3, 5 spots that are available for coaches.
Yes.
If we throw Belichick to Atlanta and Harbaugh to the Chargers, that would leave 3: Tennessee, Washington, and Carolina. So we'll see. If Vrabel ends up maybe at Washington or Carolina, or does he sit out a year and take the year off and wait to see what happens with Ryan Day in Columbus in case it does not live up to the expectations and Day is released, as Vrabel say, all right, I want to go back to my alma mater and take over that program. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Mike Vrabel, if he waits or if he's ready to take on Washington or the Carolina job.
Yeah, and Vrabel is already shown. You put him in the right situation, I think he's a hell of an NFL head coach. He's already shown. Now, again, though, but when you don't have the quarterback, though,
right,
that makes the job much less desirable, as I think we're finding out. And those teams that they don't have the quarterback set up and locked in. So we'll see what they wind up with. But yeah, I could, if Mike Vrabel wants to go that route and said, you know what, I'm willing to take that chance. We're going to go. We'll get our quarterback eventually, and develop him. Then I think he'd be a hell of a choice for any of those teams that you mentioned. That right now they're looking for a head coach, but they don't have a quarterback.
Who's the Carolina? Are you who'd they draft ahead of C.J. Stroud? It's out of sight, out of mind.
Young. You talking about this past year?
Yeah, is it Bryce Young?
Bryce Young.
Are you a believer in him? I mean,
Nope.
if you're a head coach, are you looking at that and saying that's a desirable, quarterback for me to jump on board with? I'm not. That's just
No, I'm not either.
me.
No.
So
No. I think, again, and I do think, it's not in every case. I know that, but Kenny, there is a thing, man, in the NFL. How many smallish quarterbacks hit big in the NFL?
Not many. Russell Wilson, Drew Brees come to mind. That's about it.
Yep. And there have been many. So, Bryce Young is, one of those smallish quarterbacks. Sure. Look great at times, right? Playing with Nick Saban's football team. Yeah. But, I don't, Kenny, like I said, I hate the stereotype like that, but I don't think, when we're talking about NFL quarterbacks, it's not really stereotyping. As you just said, you named two that were able to hit it big, being, not 6 feet tall.
Right.
And, not with the greatest of physical skills, but, it's a big risk, right? I mean, NFL teams they can't take that kind of risk. Now, Carolina did, but there again, Carolina was a program, right there, a football team that they're trying to get themselves back up to rebuild and be relevant again. So, you maybe tend to take some chances there. It just doesn't seem like it's working out for them. So, yeah. Would a Mike Vrabel want to take that on and say, all right, I'm willing to wait a couple of years, because probably knowing we're going to have to go get a quarterback somehow, an NFL worthy quarterback that can win.
I'm looking at it. Will Levis is the quarterback at Tennessee. Sam Howell, Washington. Bryce Young, Carolina. So we'll see if that sways those guys one way or the other.
Right.
All right, let's turn our attention to the Buckeyes because of what Harbaugh did at Michigan. Ohio State needed to look at themselves in the mirror, and that starts with the head coach, Ryan Day, and all the way down that roster. And they did so, Reg, after getting beat by Michigan for the third straight year, losing to Missouri in embarrassing fashion in the bowl game. The Buckeyes capitalized on the transfer portal, bringing in Will Howard from Kansas State at quarterback, Julian Sayin from Alabama, right? He committed to Alabama with Saban leaving. He gets a 30-day window to enter the portal. He said, I'm coming to Columbus. So you've got the top quarterback in the class of 2024 coming in, along with Air Nolan from Georgia, another recruit coming in. You've got Quinshawn Judkins, a running back from Ole Miss, who looks to be one of the best running backs in the country based on his first 2 years in the SEC. And then Caleb Downs, the safety from Alabama, entered the transfer portal and is committed to Ohio State, along with Seth McLaughlin. Even though he stunk against Michigan, he couldn't snap the ball straight for Alabama. Maybe they move him to guard, and it's a veteran offensive lineman. So they weren't real big into the transfer portal as far as major players other than Justin Fields, right? But I think they looked at what everybody's doing, the NIL money factor, and said, hey, if we're going to close the gap, and it's pretty wide right now with Michigan, then we need to not only do that, but we need to convince JT Tuimoloau, Jack Sawyer, Tyleik Williams, Denzel Burke, Trevion Henderson, and Mecca Ibuka to come back as well and do what Michigan did. And that's have a big senior class and bring them back to do two things, beat Michigan and win the national championship. And let me sprinkle this on top of all that if that wasn't enough, Reg. Bill O'Brien is now the offensive coordinator at Ohio State, former NFL head coach and, of course, offensive coordinator in the pros and collegiate league. So your thoughts on the reaction by Ohio State and what they've done to try and close the gap on the national champs?
right off the top, I give them a big attaboy for blue blood programs in college, Kenny, are usually, I'll use the term, we can go whether it's Ohio State, Alabama, Michigan lost their way for a while, but now that's because of the two horrible coaches they had. But now they're back. Blue blood programs, though, can usually have, and I get it, but there's usually a little arrogance about them.
Yep.
Right? So I give Ohio State a lot of credit. They kind of put the arrogance aside and said, we got to have help because it's not working right now. And so they did that. And now they put themselves in position again where they're showing they understand, right? You can't solve a problem, correct, Kenny, in most cases, until you are of the admittance that we have one.
Amen.
And so they've done that now. They've done that. And, I give them credit for that because, that's doesn't always happen that way. If you're in Ohio State and you feel like we can work our way out of this is just a blip on the screen, this isn't that big a problem, but they didn't do that. They're saying, yes, we realize now we're not the top team in the Big Ten right now. And they're not. Michigan is. So they've realized they've had the problem and now they're going out to rectify it. So that's a positive. That's good for them. I am not or have, I hope that holds more water for them. Or I guess I could say maybe I'll turn out to be wrong. I am not the biggest Bill O'Brien guy, Kenny.
Okay.
Then Ohio State going to kind of turn everything over to him offensively. Okay. All right. We'll see. Some good things during his tenure. Yeah, right? New England Patriots and, of course, the head coach at Penn State, right?
Yep.
We'll see. We'll see if Bill O'Brien can prove me wrong and prove me to be wrong, and that he's going to do big things with his opportunity with the Ohio State offense. So I like the fact that they have we got an issue now, so they've gone out and done a lot of things to go after that. I'm not 100% on Bill O'Brien, but he's going to get his opportunity. Certainly going to have a lot of talent to do it with. But, Kenny, again, I mean, talent has not been the issue at Ohio State. If talent was, if talent was the 100% cure-all to win every football game you play, then we wouldn't even be talking about this.
Right.
Because Ohio State is probably, top 3 for sure. Certainly no worse than top 5 in talent, or at least what's adjudged to be that in college football each and every year. But it hasn't. All that's done is, for whatever reason, it's created a Michigan problem for them now, because we know the whole story. 5 stars of Ohio State, the 3 and 4 stars of Michigan, they can't beat them. So, it's more than that. And we'll see if all these moves they made and that Bill O'Brien is the guy that can get that turned around. They're still going to have the talent, Are they going to find a way that I think the first thing is to getting back that they got to get back to start beating Michigan, Kenny. I mean, you can't continue to let this go. I mean, they did it all those years, but like I said, to me, I feel that, Ohio State had a luxury of you dealt with Rich Rodriguez and Brady Hoke, right? And I get it. The first 4 years they beat Jim Harbaugh too, when he took over at Michigan. But now the tables have turned, so they got to get back to where they can start winning the Big Ten again, Ken. And I guess that they obviously feel that Bill O'Brien is going to be a key part of that. We'll see.
Yeah, it's not quite losing 15 of 17 like Michigan did, but one's okay, they beat us. Two, they got lucky. Three's a trend, right? 3 years in a row, that's a trend. And so, like you said, good for them realizing that we can't let this, fester and become 4 in a row, and then maybe a coaching change, and then the programs, all shaken up and everything. So I think Ryan Day deserves some credit for, like I said, looking in the mirror and saying, okay, transfer portal, yes. Coaching changes, yes. They've made what, 2 or 3 of them, and they bring in Bill O'Brien. Now, will he relinquish entire play calling duties? We're going to find out. Will he just become the CEO of the team and stand there on the sidelines, allowing his offensive and defensive coordinators to run the show? I don't know yet. We'll have to wait and see. But if you're bringing in a guy like Bill O'Brien, he's not just going to have the name of the OC, right, Reg? I can't see that, where Ryan Day just brings him in and says, okay, you're the OC, we're going to pay you well, but I'm calling every play on game day. I'll be shocked if Ryan Day doesn't relinquish the play calling duties to Bill O'Brien.
So yeah, I think you're of the, if Michigan were to win this coming year in 2024,
yeah,
I think Ryan Day's out, right?
Yes, especially after what they just did with the transfer portal and getting all those so-called 4- and 5-star guys to come back for their final year. So yeah, if Ryan Day loses this year, new president, new athletic director, new direction maybe, right, in the athletic program. Even though the new AD gave him that resounding vote of confidence, you know how that is. That can be the kiss of death. Yeah. I think if they were to lose again and not make the playoff, with 12 teams now going to be in the playoff, yes. And remember, Washington now is in the Big Ten. Oregon's in the Big Ten. Buckeyes got to travel to Oregon, right? Now, Michigan, you would think they're going to have a down year based on losing 43 players that helped them be the most dominant team in college football this year. So that, along with who's coming back and what they went out and got, Reg, if you can't beat Michigan this year when they're reloading, right, with McCarthy gone to the NFL and everything, then, yeah, I think Ryan Day loses his job.
Yeah, more than likely. I think just because of the anger that will again continue to fester among Ohio State's program and the fan base and what have you. So it's not going to get easier. The only difference is now, I think, with a 12-team playoff, and this goes for Ohio State, it goes for Michigan, it goes for Alabama, Georgia, all the teams, all the normal names. Can you 10-2 probably, if you're one of those blue buds, 10-2 will get you into you're going to get into the 12-team playoff now. I can't see them, and so that means, let's say, whether it's Michigan losing to Ohio State losing to Michigan. I think we're going to find that the loser of that game, I don't think that necessarily knocks them out anymore of a 12-team playoff. Now, that's assuming there's only one other loss with it, right, by a team like that. And that goes for, again, Georgia, Alabama, Oklahoma, anybody you want to that has ruled their conferences. Well, now you can lose your rivalry game, and if that's your first or second loss, even of the season, you still can get in at 10-2.
But Reg, what if that second loss puts you in the Big Ten championship game, and Ohio State and Michigan have to play 2 weeks in a row? And that's a possibility now with the way things are going to be set up. So that means it could be a third loss before even getting to the playoffs. So I think, one loss going into the Big Ten championship game, okay, in Big Ten play, right? But you end up losing twice in 2 weeks. I don't think you're getting in, even if you're Ohio State or Michigan, if you lose back-to-back games like that. That's just me.
We'll see how all this plays out. I do think that I just know that we'll see when the 12 teams, we won't know 100% sure. Kenny, I just think it goes to reason that there's going to be a few 10-2 teams that are in that playoff. I don't see how there can't be, quite honestly.
Okay.
I mean, how many 12-0 and 11-1 teams are you going to have?
Right.
To fill out those 12 spots.
Well, I'm just adding USC, Oregon, and Washington to the mix because it's
Sure.
Ohio State, Michigan, maybe Penn State, and everybody else. Now you add in legit programs with Lincoln Riley there at USC, although, they've come up short the last 2 years, but you got to think, they're going to be a force, or not a force, a factor is a better F word for them in the Big Ten. Oregon, too, we'll see with Bo Nix gone, what happens there in Oregon and Washington after losing their coach to Alabama. So I just think there are going to be more teams in the Big Ten that could be battling for those 2 playoff spots if we think 2 will come out of the Big Ten.
Oh, completely agreed. Yes, completely agreed. I would just, though, to whether you're an Ohio State fan, a Michigan fan, Georgia, Alabama, I don't know. I think I do know. If you're expecting 12-0s and 11-1s every year, I think you're going to be sadly mistaken. I just don't see it that these teams are going to continue to roll that off each and every year, Kenny. And I'm talking about the Blue Bloods here.
Okay.
The competition now is getting, again, just the names you just laid out that are, and especially the 2 in the Big Ten, Ohio State and Michigan. If you want to, my Penn State friends, if you want to, well, we're a Blue Blood. Well, okay. I'll put Penn State on the fringe. They certainly aren't Ohio State or Michigan. But sure, if you want to, fine. I just think that every year figuring, well, even if we have a bad year, we're going to go 11-1 or 10-2. Kenny, I think those days are done. I think we're going to start seeing some 9-3s here and there. Hell, might even be some 8-4s, and God only knows what some of those programs are going to. Can you imagine, like I said, I mean, for those that, wow, just take the 2 we talk about most, the Ohio State and Michigan fan base. Can you imagine an 8-4, them having to deal with an 8-4, say with a loss to the other one, and of course then a loss to Oregon, a loss to USC, right? Yep. Maybe a loss to Penn State here and there too, and you wind up 8-4 on the year. My God, that's going to be a new day, buddy. Yeah, a new day.
Well, we'll see the Buckeyes reacting to what Michigan did, and we'll see if it pays dividends for them on the field coming up this season in 2024. Hey, Reg, before we get out of here, we do have to give the Cavaliers some love. Sure. They are now 25-15 through 40 games, so almost at the halfway point. They've won 7 straight. Here's my question to you. Is this sustainable for them, the way they've been playing 12-3 in their last 15 without Evan Mobley, without Darius Garland, 7 straight? Is this sustainable? Is this where they have feasted on cupcakes in those 15 games because they played a lot of under 500 teams, can beat Milwaukee without Giannis? So where are you on what you're seeing from this team right now that is technically the hottest team in the NBA with 7 straight wins?
Yeah, they are, and a lot of credit to them for getting it done. Everybody is going to play the same amount of games against the competition, as you just said. I think the Cavaliers have feasted a little bit, Kenny, on the schedule and the way it's shown mostly under 500 teams during the course of this 7-game win streak. I don't think that it's sustainable if you're talking about having to continue to go without Evan Mobley and Darius Garland for a long period of time. I mean, they've gotten just outstanding play out of so many guys during the course of this stretch, and yet I just don't see it as being sustainable, Kenny, unless that they're going to have to get Mobley and Garland back for this team to be whole. If we're talking about now going ahead and say, getting a top 4 spot, right, in the Eastern Conference and being able to make some noise and not being a knockout of the playoffs like they were last April, which certainly was hell, it wasn't any fun. Brought a lot of consternation to Cavaliers fans. So we'll see. I hope they can get whole, get healthy, and then go and take their shot. Go take their shot and line up against the the better teams. Because I don't know, can you beat Milwaukee, Philly, or Boston?
If both teams are healthy, I don't think so.
Yeah,
right?
I don't think so either. So that would put them right there with those 3 for sure. So now that means, so you're number 4 in the conference. So but eventually you're going to get to one of those 2, probably one of those 3, probably in the second round, right, Ken? More likely in the second round, you're going to see one of them if you don't have to see them one of them in the first round, which you probably won't have to do. If you won't have to do it if you can get that 4 spot. So, big picture, Kenny, do I expect the Cavaliers to, get to Eastern Conference Finals and have? No, not as currently constructed. But more importantly, what we just said. Boston, Milwaukee, and Philadelphia are just definitely better basketball teams.
What do you make of Mobley out, Garland out, 12-3, 7 in a row, better ball movement, more outside shots, living and dying by the 3-pointer at about 45, triples a game? Is that kudos to JB Bickerstaff for figuring out a way, minus 2 all-star caliber players? Is that the way they are going to continue to play when Mobley and Garland come back, or will they have to readjust? Because when Mobley is out there, right, that takes a 3-point shooter off the floor. When Garland is out there with Mitchell, that's 2 ball-dominant guards, and we see the stanky leg a lot with that. What do you expect when those guys come back?
Well, partner, now we're going back to last year. Remember my last year, the playoffs?
Yep.
Remember, what was my biggest thing? Again, you just said one of the terms, ball dominance from a pair of 6'1" guards.
Yeah.
In this NBA. And Kenny, remember, the 2 of them were taking close to 70% of the team's shot attempts. And you've got the matchup size disadvantage with both of them too. It's not that they're both not outstanding players. Yeah, we know they are. Garland's gotten a little bit too shot happy for my tastes.
Mm-hmm.
You know that. But that's my taste. For me, I would like a little bit more if he pulled back on 4 to 6 shot attempts a game and look to be getting people the basketball with him facilitating. But Ken, I don't know. I think I'm whistling in the dark, because it seems to me like last year started to go the other way for Darius Garland. It was like, I'm gonna make sure I get my jacks up every night, right? And I'm the guy. Hell, the young man may think he's the number 1 guy on the team. Donovan Mitchell notwithstanding, I don't know. But, as I said, I'm not going to back off from that. To me, it's just two guard dominant with a pair of small guards. I just don't see that. That's not a recipe for winning an NBA championship. It's just not. And if you're talking about anything, if you're just happy with, obviously they get to the second round and, it's fun, and they're going and drilling all the under 500 teams. Well, okay, fine. But to me, Ken, that's not what it's all about. I mean, you got to be this is with the winning an NBA championship in mind, is it not? Shouldn't it be?
For me, it is. And I hope it is for them as well.
Well, I hope so. Some nights I wonder. And I get it. It sounds like I don't think it's sustainable as you play teams like we've just mentioned in series, Ken. I mean, just those three. How can you envision them winning a 7-game series against Boston, Milwaukee, or Philadelphia? I can't. And if they turn out to be, all of you can tell me, oh, Reggie, you're so wrong. And you see okay, fine. Fine. But I just don't see it with the way they play and as backcourt dominant they are. How many times last year did we, even with it, you got to get Evan Mobley more involved in this offense. And that means, right, and even Jared Allen a little bit.
Yeah.
And that means what? Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland got to subjugate the ego a little bit here, whatever it is. You can't just go into every game and say, well, we're both going to get our 25 jacks. Well, no, I'm going to tell you what, you're not winning the championship that way. You're not. So we'll see where they go with that.
And we'll also see by February 8th if they do anything to add or subtract from this basketball team as the trading deadline just around the corner. Do want to give a shout out to Jared Allen, though. He's been playing all-star caliber basketball
Yes.
and, may or may not make the all-star team, but I think 11 straight double-doubles to tie the franchise record for most consecutive double-doubles. So he deserves some love. And another guy, Donovan Mitchell, got to give him credit too. He's getting 6 or 7 assists a night. And also scoring about 30 points a night during this stretch. So, kudos to him. I still am concerned about Max Strus, too inconsistent for me, but he's better than what they had. And give credit to Isaac Okoro for adjusting his game now. Less pressure on him to be, a lottery pick guy that they count on for big things and just more of a role player now. So those guys have done a nice job. And so has Karis LeVert. He's become a little bit more consistent. What's my knock been on him? Inconsistent. He's consistently inconsistent. Well, this year he's played a lot better and more
averaging
consistent.
16 points, 4 assists, 4 boards.
So,
as the sixth man.
Yeah, so give me that consistency. I don't care the amount of points. I want it to be the same. I don't want 22 one night and 2 the next night. I need him every time he steps on the floor to give me 16. 15. Yeah, so that
15.
Yeah. So
have a game where maybe be 10 or 12.
Right.
All right, we can live with that. But no, I get it. And I just think he's done a hell of a job as a 6th man this year, and embracing that role, grasping that role. Because look, we know Kenny, on a lot of teams. I mean, even some good teams, he'd be a starter. He wouldn't be coming off the bench, and so he has embraced that. And I think playing very good basketball. When you look at things overall, and for what it's meant to just the core of this team. So we'll see. I hope. What is the Mobley Garland injury? When the hell are they supposed to be back?
Well, what I'm hearing on Garland is he's supposed to be back sooner than Mobley, because Mobley's was a knee. Garland had the fractured jaw, had his mouth wired shut. Finally got that taken out. And now he needs to get into basketball shape. And so that's what's keeping him out. Could be sometime this week, maybe on this road trip. They go to Orlando, Milwaukee this week for their 3 games. So maybe with Garland somewhere on this road trip, whereas Mobley, I think, is still a ways away into the month of February. If it were me, I wouldn't rush him back. If it means getting extra time off with the All-Star break, so be it. But he's a little bit further away, so expect Garland to be back before Mobley.
Do you think, as you said, do you think it's important, or do you think it'd even be more so than just for a win? It would be important if they won one of those 2 games at Milwaukee? Or not in the grand scheme of things, over the course of 82, doesn't it mean that much?
I need one with Giannis on the floor. I need a victory with Giannis on the floor during this stretch. They blew him out by 40 the other night. He didn't play.
Oh, yeah. Well,
right? Yeah. So,
that's what I meant. You play them there, and if Giannis is on the floor, how important is it that they get a win in one of them? I mean, a win in both of them, that ain't going to happen. So,
I think if they go 1-2 this week, and one of those wins is at Milwaukee, with Giannis in the lineup, I think that carries more weight holds more water, bigger confidence booster than beating Orlando and losing 2 to Milwaukee. You know what I mean? So if they only win one out of these next 3, win one in Milwaukee with Giannis playing for the Bucks. That's the way I see it.
Absolutely. I think that that might do a lot more even between the years and for the mindset than just winning a game to, add to your record right now. So looking forward to seeing how they play in those 2 against Milwaukee, Kenny.
Reg, that'll do it for this edition of the RnR podcast. We'll be back in about another week as we wait to see what happens in the AFC and NFC Championship games and who's off to the Super Bowl. And then, of course, we'll keep an eye on the Cavaliers as they try and string together some more wins. And then if they do anything coming up with the trading deadline just around the corner, all right?
Yeah, sounds good, buddy. Always a pleasure. And all of you that follow us here on RnR, appreciate all of your staying with us, and a lot of good things coming up here as we go forward here this year.
No doubt, Reg. Always a pleasure. Thanks to Ty Courts, our producer. Great job as always. Most of all, thanks to our listeners out there who have been following us and listening to us over the years. We really appreciate it. Happy New Year to you all. We'll talk to you soon here on the RnR podcast, powered by MGM Northfield Park here on the Press Play Podcast Network.